this way I see there is still a light in me. Carry onward thankfully, and let the light see what it sees.
Well, in what I'm hearing you're saying, there's these moral kind of quality coming out of the sphere of love, and we can, or in past times, we connect to it through kind of outer, some like past access of that love through maybe the, I don't know, 10 Commandments in our Western culture. But maybe now that we can directly access that sphere and actually, I mean, the classic word would be intuit, like to intuit morality through accessing love directly.
Yeah.
That kind of.
Yeah. So this for me is the absolute next step. So we've learnt this in thinking. Thinking used to be out there in the thing.
Yeah.
We've already gone this pathway with thought. Now, the thought was out there with the rock, with the stone, only in there in the ancient times. And slowly it has become part of our intellectuality. We access those cosmic thoughts within our own being. And we can even say, we can deny there's any other reality except for ourselves, of which it arises from. And yet it's still active in the human being. Whether you deny its origin or deny its connection or it has any threads or just think it's within you, it's still active within the human being. So that pathway of thinking, thoughts are outside, now they're within, is actually taking place within the realm of love / morality.
Gotcha.
It was outside. God is love. Here are the commandments. If you follow this, and in a way the 10 Commandments are an outer picture, whereas the Eightfold Path from Buddhism is the inner picture of the same moral process. But now we can say, I can access this all out of my own being. Now, do we keep the connection to the fact that there was a different original source and that we can source a living source of that? Or do we separate off and only love happens within me because of me? Like thought only happens within me because of me. Or when you're thinking, and this is what I found when I was, I think, 24, when I first learned to think. I mean, of course I was thinking before, but when I had thoughts, which I would say was living thinking, where something was thinking with me, and it's not something, a wiser thinker was thinking within. Now, I think I was astute enough to know myself, because I'd been on the path of inner development long enough to know I'm not owning that I know me. That thought is moving something in me. This thought that I'm having is actually inspiring me. And I hadn't smoked anything or done anything. This is truly out of my own inner space. So you can go from all thoughts come from within myself to this next step where actually thoughts become living, and you know that alongside your own thinking there is something living with it. And the same very thing can happen with love. That your love, you start to realize you can work love and activate love, and you can look at the work in the channel around all the virtues and see all of these aspects of love which can be worked and developed. And that's a very important thing, because we really don't understand love. We think love in this sentimental or superficial way, but love is as profound to the human soul as any other capacity of consciousness is. It really is a time for us to get on with the work of love. And as we work with love, we realize that I can activate something in my own being, and it has nothing to do with the other. Well, when you're young, you kind of need the other to get this moving. Now, that's the same with thinking. For most people, 99% of their thoughts are created through the other stimulating the thought. not through will-filled, individualized effort. Same with love. 99% of your love is created by that face, that look, that beauty, that thing, that out there. And can you get creative for yourself like you can create thinking for yourself? And then if you follow the path of thinking that goes from a dead process that is in me that has no living connection to living thinking, and then you move towards love, you can never describe love as dead. But you recognize that I can have an experience of love that is not activated by the other causing it, like thinking is no longer activated by the other. And then you get this experience of what participates with these aspects of love, like what participates with this new type of thinking. And every step that you take on the path of development alters your reality, and you're in a world of other beings or other consciousnesses. And we meet God or the spiritual world, which are all the facets of the spiritual world, in that realm, in their expression. So the 24 masters or the 24 virtues. You can call them what you want, but they are actually as alive to the heart, this new mystery center, the human heart, where you encounter those forces that can help transform you. And so we've learned first to do it in thinking. I think that's one of the most important things. But now we're at a stage where we must learn to do it in feeling. We need to learn to do it in love. If we just stay in the realm of thinking, we could get colder in our being. And in that coldness, we won't create a future for all. We'll create a future that is preferable to some. But the heart could never do that.
But it's interesting. Well, I was interested in your experience at 24.
Yeah.
Because I feel like one of the hardest things to work with in meditation is self-recognition.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I'm experiencing this now. You know, and it's kind of like, oh, I just left that. You know, or you know what I'm saying? Like, and like how to have, and it also seems like it's connected to the creation of memory. You know, like if we're still trying to retain this.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it felt like foundational to where you were going at the end of what you said.
Well, look, and you can see this go, if you want to, interested in looking at the virtue talks, the introduction talks about working with them. And the way that I always start is actually starting with the awareness of I through the realm of thought. And then moving into the heart to do the work of the virtue. Now, a lot of the times, and particularly in certain methods that are around today, it's just drop into the heart and do this heart activity, not really understanding the in a way, the extraordinary dimensions of love and how these different master forces are unfolded within the human being. But to get to that capacity, one needs to have the light of consciousness with you. Now, this has multiple consequences to the development of the individual, because if you can awaken to your I consciousness, which will allow you to have this perception that you're speaking about first, then you can really be your own guide, or you have your own guide in the process of your next steps. And the ideal thing on the path, the ideal is that you first awaken there and then you awaken into the heart. If you awaken into the heart first, the level of subjectivity can mean that you are distracted or diverted from the true task of the work of love, because one gets caught up in all the desire and the experience and the wanting to grasp it and to own it and to claim it, because we want to kind of keep building a sense of self. But when you work through the first step, which is to develop this I consciousness, which meditation will really give you, then you realize that actually I have to put aside this everyday self and work with this I consciousness on the furthering of my own development. Not try to have this everyday self, who I am, with all my personality and all my stories, and then just grow more me. So now I've got this spiritual self and this mystical me and my preferred particular self and all these parts of me, and I'm, really just getting a larger... It's creating hindrances for your own future. And we are the ones that put up the hurdles. So the first step of the path is to put your everyday self to one side. And in doing that, you find this I awareness, which is the realm of which really pure thinking can take place. And if you can hold that first, then enter into the work of love, you're in a very different realm of connecting with the future. Then if you go into the door, the portal of love, before you enter into the portal of consciousness. So there's a purposefulness in why there are steps on the path, because we're not following some teacher, some guru, some outer. We're really working with ourselves and everything in ourselves. And we do have it in ourselves, and that's the most extraordinary thing, that you have that capacity in you if you first awaken it. And it's, there are clear signposts and purposefulness in the steps and stages. First, through thinking, because if you don't awaken that realm, then the heart realm is so subjective that you don't know where you're going to be or how to maneuver there, actually. And then we end up in a more of a sentimental and superstitious. I know many people's relationship to love is really sentimental and superstitious. That's not the work of love.
Would you say that concentration is kind of one of the hallmarks of that first stage of thinking? Because that for me, so I, found out about the 6 basic exercises a long time ago, and I was always like, I love them all, but the first one, the control of the thoughts, which is the 6 basic exercises, something that Rudolf Steiner gave for people to start with, is one of the things to start with. And the first one's always control of thoughts, concentration. And all the other ones are kind of beautiful, and fun to do. I would look forward to that, and then I would always get to the time to do the first one and be like, I gotta take a bath, I gotta go, I need a glass of water, let me move away from this. But then I started to really understand that concentration is so, is the unlocking for everything else. And it's also really tied, I think, with uprightness, keeps coming up for me with what you're saying. There's an uprightness.
Yeah, so that's interesting, because in the yogic path, the uprightness is all in your body.
Right.
And in the esoteric path, the uprightness is actually all in the soul. And you're right, your ability to concentrate is the uprightness of the soul, is the posture of the soul. And that posture is really important for that step of development in thinking. Now, how far along is that? And this is what's so interesting about the path, as I've walked it and understood it for the years that I've been in this incarnation, is that everything is by degree. So concentration is an essential beginning step, but it doesn't leave you as a capacity much further down the track, because it is still such an important capacity by degree, even though you may think it's an entry point. And a lot of people are like, why do I have to concentrate?
Yeah.
But you'll see more and more the usefulness of that and why it becomes such an important tool to have. So I would say that it's none of those early exercises are easy. But like if you're going to walk the mountain, you spend a few months in the gymnasium at least getting the muscles. And then, you know, the gym is not that an interesting place. You're just pulling weights. But you don't do the gym just to look good, and you don't do it for the gym's sake. It's because you've got a mountainous climb ahead of you, and you want to make sure you've got all of the tools that you're going to need. And concentration is certainly one of them. So those 6 subsidiary exercises, or those 6 hygienic exercises, which we can put a link to for everyone, they are like the really basic climbing tools if you're going to move. But you also know that once you're on that path, those tools will be utilised in different ways than when you understood them in the gymnasium. Because, you know, it's very different walking on a treadmill than it is up a rocky terrain. And so you never really know the importance of them until you're out there and really in those other realms. And then you see, this was really important. And you can't go back and grab hold of them at that point. So that's why many things are important to do before you get to certain stages. Concentration of thinking is important because it's not that you can hold your thought in one direction. It's the power that's holding the thought in that one direction that will continue to need to be used, not the thought itself.
Yeah, the object of the control of thought is purposefully meaningless.
And even the idea of content becomes meaningless. But to hold the room in which the content takes place, that's actually where the real observer and witness can stand and actually endure many things on the path. Because when you see your level of vanity, if you're able to hold that, strangely enough, that observer witness can actually hold that without feeling shame, without feeling the forces that would burn you if you could see it face to face, what goes on in your own soul life. And it doesn't mean you don't feel those things, but they don't take you off the track if you have that room of objectivity to witness, to actually look on, to simply look on and recognise, that lives in me. That you've not been thrown back 10 paces because you have concentration, and you wouldn't think it was concentration that allowed you to do that. But concentration allows you to look on at some of the most difficult aspects of your own inner being and actually observe them and recognise them and actually then take responsibility for them. Now, for a lot of people, they see these forces and they just blame others. They're blaming, shaming, because they haven't developed concentration of thinking. It's an extraordinary tool.
What's that?
It's an extraordinary tool.
Yeah.
Down the track.
Well, it just seems like the most, if I want to develop something to not eat the chocolate cake, look at my phone again, it just seems like the most
Well, I'd say that all 6 of them are important parts of that, but concentration is the beginning of that picture, and it will get used in many various forms as you grow into other realms of consciousness. It doesn't stay just in the realm of the sense perceptible, where I've got to have the will not to pick my phone up. It has far deeper consequences, because not having a cigarette on the sense plane is easy compared to not having a cigarette on the astral plane. You think you can give something up here? How many people are celibate here but not celibate there? Let me say.
Yeah.
It's totally different to actually meet your desire body in the sense perceptible world than to meet it in the astral plane.
Walking home this way I see there is still a light in me. Carry onward, thank